welcome to this week's webinar. My name is Nathan Batchelor and I'll be your host for today. So before I begin, I'm just going to read through this disclaimer. Please feel free to read along as well. Beyond Trader LLC is strictly a research publishing firm. Information we publish is based on our opinions plus our quantitative models, statistical and financial data and independent research. This service is not registered with any financial regulatory agency, such as the SEC or any other organization or governmental body. By using our platform or our services, you acknowledge that we do not provide personalized recommendation or advice. Alternative asset classes are volatile investments and carry significant risk. Please do your own research before making any financial decisions. Okay, so on today's agenda, I'm going to be covering the usual Sunday educational topic, and I'm going to be focused on how I get my price targets and the kind of information that I use to get there, the relevance to the market, also the price actions, and also the trading plan for altcoins, how I see next week and a bunch of altcoins, whereabouts they're going to go, and then I'll be doing the Q&A session towards the end. So yeah, without further ado, let's get started with this week's get my price targets. And before I begin to do that, I think it might be interesting to some people to know what I think the market's going to do. So I'll just briefly inform you that I think the market is going to probably hit some medium-term targets next week, and then we're going to get a pullback. So what I'm basically looking for is maybe another 10 to 15% higher in Bitcoin, and then a major pullback. And I think it'll be the same for altcoins. So maybe we'll see 20 or 30% in some altcoins next week. And then after that, we'll start to correct. And then we'll have a very, very good buying opportunity coming up. And then we'll go higher than the targets after we've had that recovery and the market starts to recover. Then we'll go higher than those targets that we're going to probably hit next week. That's my number one scenario. So I thought you might just find that interesting. So I'm just going to put that out there now. Just in case anybody is wondering what I'm thinking about next week. Okay, so in general, like I say, this webinar is going to be about how I will be looking towards my medium and long-term price targets, and starting with trend lines. So trend lines, I typically look to see where the trend lines are pointing towards. And I think the key point here to say is obviously I've been drawing trend lines for a long time. I tend to use the daily and weekly timeframes because they give me a good roadmap about where the price is going. And obviously this is hugely subjective to the trend line drawer and his own perception of how to draw trend lines. But I will say that I think I've mastered the art of trend lines. I've been drawing them for 20 years across various asset classes, and I've understood that each asset class behaves differently towards how you draw these trend lines. So I do have a lot of experience in that regard. And this is a bit of a roadmap, which I've been posting about recently and something that I've been looking at for many, many months. So this was kind of the roadmap for me earlier this year. The bottom trend line for Bitcoin, if we broke underneath there, we were going to go into a bear market towards 32,000. But honestly, my overall inclination all year has been that we're going to go to 90,000. And I think I'm one of the people who have said it earlier the most in 2024. I started to talk about 90,000 as a target based on how I draw these trend lines. And I'm obviously drawing these trend lines because former all-time highs are connected to each other, and we have a perfectly symmetrical bottom line as well. So it was very obvious to me that that's where the market was going to try to go towards. So I use this as a bit of a roadmap. It was also obvious by the downsloping trend line, which is often used as a breakout trend line. Once we broke above there, 70,000, turbocharged towards 90,000. We're obviously tapping on the door of 80,000 today, which is, the halfway mark. So far, so good in terms of what I was looking at. And obviously it takes a great degree of patience and confidence in order to kind of play and let this play out into the market. And this was taken, I think, just after the election, and those targets remain in place for what I'm seeing very much. And like I said, I've got this scenario where we go up to 90,000, we probably correct back to down to 72, and then we have a shot at 96. So that's what I'm looking at, just to build in also the picture of the price action. And I think once the trend line targets and breakout points are clear for me, I then look for complementary evidence. So I look for other things to support the thesis that I've got in the market. And I think some of the mainstays that I've got, as well as the technicals and the fundamentals. So I use DMARC targets. The DMARC indicator is very good for me in terms of trying to see if they match with my trend lines and also patterns. If they match, then it's basically game on for me. And if the on-chain data and the macro picture and the price action also fits, then I'm usually 100% confident in what I'm saying, even though it can sound crazy to people 6 months away. And kind of my track record has proved that, like, more often than not, I've been right in my long-term predictions using these methods. And like the DMARC indicator, just in case you like to know, I like the 12-hour daily and weekly time frames if I'm going to use it. And when the targets match exactly with my trend line targets, then I know that I've got something very powerful to look forward to. And price patterns are also a mainstay, and probably second to trend lines in terms of accurate predictions. And here we've got the wedge breakout for Bitcoin earlier. Actually, earlier this week, last week we had a fake breakout, and obviously that's pointing probably towards 90,000 plus. So I know that the pattern is in line with what I'm looking at with my trend lines, and also we've got this huge cup and handle pattern, which is obviously showing that once the breakout happens, then the upside could be much more than 90,000. But we'll worry about that. I think if we get a strong retracement from 90,000 or a breakthrough in that area. So these are all the bullish inclinations that I was seeing. So, that gives you a little bit of a snapshot about what I look into. And also our own technical indicators. We've obviously developed Vanguard, and Vanguard is showing a strong weekly buy signal, a very, very strong weekly buy signal. And very rarely do we not get 2 bars in a row. So I'm expecting more upside and hopefully 90,000 as early as next week. So building it all together, doing what I'm showing, it takes a lot of experience, skill, and confidence to put all these things together so they're all matching. I even go into interviews sometimes 6 months in advance, and I say what I think, and like people will tell me, oh, like people will say, how can he know that? And you'll get lots of trolling and stuff like that. But often it plays out because I'm not getting emotional about it. I'm just talking about what I'm seeing on the charts and other kind of evidence. But I will give you, if anybody is still not sure about their own trading ability, or they're looking to define their method, I will say um, belief in yourself is key. Once you believe in your system, and the ability to outweigh any doubters, not listen to what anybody else is saying, where they think the market is going, just have a pure conviction in yourself and your experience. And that's kind of what's kept me through. And believe me, there's been some times where the pressure's really been on, but I believe that if you can have confidence in yourself in this industry, then it can really see you through. So with that, hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to be going through to the altcoin section now, and I'm going to be looking at what I'm looking at next week and maybe the week after if we don't achieve the target. So I'll go through these pretty quickly. Cardano, I'm actually looking at an initial target of 1 being hit, possibly as soon as next week, maybe even 0.90, and then some pullback, but the larger objective would be towards 2. And if we have a look at Dogecoin, my target is 0.35, and then a pullback, and then a much larger move going towards the faraway target of around 0.40 in future. And again, I could be wrong in that we break out next week and we explode towards 0.4, but I honestly don't see that as a possibility. XRP, my target all year has been about 1 cent. Even though I've got 110 here, I'm going to say basically 1 cent I'd be very happy with. It's got a lot of catching up to do, and it's kind of suggesting that we've got a lot of upside still to go for XRP. In terms of Uniswap, I'm looking at $14.50 as an interim target for next week. Again, all these coins are pointing towards a lot of upside still. So, that speaks to me that altcoins have still got a lot of explosion to do in the market. Original trail or track, I'd be looking at that one to go towards probably 0.8 or something like that next week, possibly even higher. I've got some divergence going to 1, but I doubt it's going to make a 50% move next week. But then again, altcoins can pretty much do what they want. This was my chart of Solano, expecting it to break out. And obviously, once it's broke out of that area, 185, it hasn't looked back. fully expecting that to go towards 240. And I think Ethereum, I was looking at this breakout. Obviously, you know the trade that I've had on, and once we broke out of here, we haven't looked back, and we pretty much had an explosion. I was asked to have a look at SUI, if that's how you pronounce it, or SUI. I've got a target of 4 coming up. I think that's very achievable. And I was also asked about where I would look for a pullback target. I've got 2 main targets on a pullback, $2.73 as the first area to look, and then a more extended area around $2.40. But overall, I think after this next pullback, this coin is going to explode. And like, the suggestions that I'm seeing on the price chart, pretty ridiculous in terms of like price targets. We could be looking at 5 or something like that going forward. And in terms of Solano, I'm definitely looking towards 240 as a very, very achievable target, maybe even 245, 250, as this kind of clearly shows. And Tron is another one that I've been asked to look at. I'll be looking at around 0.22 next week as a target for Tron. So I've just moved through those very quickly. I think we've got a huge week ahead, and probably everybody's busy and wants to go and watch the market and look at the charts. I've got a question coming in. Hello, how can we flow you on a daily basis, and do you offer trade alerts for for stocks and crypto? No, just crypto at the moment. I'm honestly I'm going on of the other end of the spectrum now, in that I'm really just moving towards Bitcoin signals now. I really rarely issue altcoin signals. We're managing institutional money and a Bitcoin fund, so I'm pretty much focused on that, and I'm kind of sharing the trades that I'm giving for that fund, and I'm very much moving away from that. And our own systems are starting to give automated signals out now, which aren't to do with me, and they're more to do with the system we have called Vanguard. So yeah, thank you very much for that question. Okay, so again, I really appreciate you turning up. I'll be hosting a webinar on Thursday. Hope to see you then, and I'll speak to you all soon.